Welcome to the Tinfoil Rabbit Hole, the show that goes deeper than just the page one search results. I am your host, the White Rabbit. This show comes to you from deep down within our tinfoil rabbit hole. It's from there where we'll discuss the strange, the odd, the mysterious, and the unexplained. We'll explore every subject with its accepted definition and understanding, and dive deep into the interweb in search of alternative possibilities. So I invite you to put on your tinfoil hat and stay with me a while inside my tinfoil rabbit hole.
Episode 6, Conspiracies That Are True. Humans love conspiracy theories and always have. There's evidence of that dating back to ancient Roman times and probably further back than that. Today, because information is abundant and accessible with a mouse click, they permeate our cultures. They seem to be everywhere and encompass all subject matter, from one world governments and new world order to whether or not our distant ancestors had alien contact or that civilizations may have existed more than 25,000 years ago. Wikipedia states that a conspiracy theory is an explanation of an event or situation that invokes a conspiracy by sinister and powerful actors, often political in motivation, when other explanations are more probable. Conspiracy theories resist falsification and are reinforced by circular reasoning. Both evidence against the conspiracy and an absence of evidence for it are reinterpreted as evidence of its truth, whereby the conspiracy becomes a matter of faith rather than something that can be proved or disproved. Research suggests that a conspiracist ideation, belief in conspiracy theories, can be psychologically harmful or pathological. Many times, conspiracy theories are an attempt to rationalize and explain seemingly abnormal to very normal events. They reject the widely accepted narratives and explanations of such events, and in many cases, even though there may be an official, sound, and logical explanation or rationale, that itself lends further credence and weight to the conspiracy side of things. Conspiracy theories manifest more often into current public narratives when there are natural disasters, wars, economic depressions, and during periods of social anxiety, hardships, and uncertainties. Humans are driven by strong urges to make sense of these external forces, and conspiratorial thinking is an attempt to cope and make sense of things. Exposure to media that endorses conspiracies increases belief. There is evidence that watching the movie JFK increased belief in a conspiracy to assassinate Kennedy and decreased belief in the official story that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. Strangely, there was an additional piece of information uncovered by the JFK assassination example. People who had seen the movie expressed less interest in political participation than people who were about to view the movie. Could it be that distrust of those in power predicts and is caused by belief in government conspiracies? Whether it's the killing of a U.S. president, a mass shooting involving a seemingly normal older white male, or crop circles suddenly appearing in fields around the world, conspiracy theories are never far behind. Just to be clear, the White Rabbit doesn't believe his stories to be conspiratorial. They are inspirational and told to make you think for yourself. Although many conspiracy theories seem far-fetched, a belief that evil powers are pursuing a secret plan is prominent and widespread in every society. A large 2019 poll found 16% of respondents in Spain believe that HIV was created and spread around the world on purpose by a secret group or organization, and 27% of French and 12% of British respondents were convinced that the truth about the harmful effects of vaccines is being deliberately hidden from the public. Conspiracy theories can be harmful for society, but put on your tinfoil gear and follow me deep down into my tinfoil rabbit hole. I will tell you how they can also be true to some extent. Subject 1. It wasn't a weather balloon that crashed in Roswell, New Mexico. In 1947, Army Air Forces announced that a mysterious object had crashed in the desert outside of Roswell, New Mexico, but it was not a flying saucer, and in fact, was just a weather balloon. As the years went on, interest in the crash site declined, but from the late 70s to the 90s, interest surged, and many believers alleged that the government was covering up what really crashed at Roswell. The Los Angeles Times noted in 1994 that the Roswell incident had been repeatedly dismissed by the Defense Department as nothing more than UFO fantasies triggered by the discovery of a downed weather balloon. As it turned out, there was a cover-up. What had crashed in the desert wasn't a weather balloon, but it wasn't a UFO either. Instead, it was probably a balloon from Project Mogul, a Cold War attempt to spy on Soviet nuclear weapons development that used balloon-borne acoustic detection. This cover-up came to light in the early 90s after a New Mexico representative asked the General Accounting Office to pressure the Pentagon into declassifying documents related to Roswell. According to the New York Times, that led to an Air Force report on the subject, which was released in 1994. It concluded that the Roswell find was most likely from one of the mogul balloons that had not been previously recovered. According to a journal maintained by one of the people working on Project Mogul in New Mexico, one of the balloons launched in June of 1947 was never recovered after its mission. The Air Force reported considering it probable that it was the balloon battered by surface winds that landed on a ranch in 1947. According to the report, the Air Force research efforts did not disclose any records of the recovery of any alien bodies or extraterrestrial materials. The report also speculated that the weather balloon story could have been chosen as the official line, either because the relevant authorities actually thought it was a weather balloon, or perhaps because they knew of the highly classified Project Mogul and were trying to cover it up. The military would not have wanted its spy activities or technology to come to light, so even UFOs would have been a better option than the truth. Of course, some think that the cover-up remains. The White Rabbit believes all explanations are still plausible. Subject 2. American scientists have militarized the weather. As part of their 2014 book, The American Conspiracy Theories, Joseph Usinski and Joseph Parent trawled thousands upon thousands of letters to the editors from over a century of newspapers to determine which ones had a conspiratorial slant to them. The letters either proposed a conspiracy or argued against a conspiracy that seemed to be in the air at that time. They found writers proposing or debunking conspirators as diverse as the Boers, conservationists, Theodore and Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and even the Prime Minister of Malta. One of the letters they discuss is a 1958 comment about American scientists trying to find a method for controlling the weather. In the 1950s, controlling the weather was a major topic of discussion. There were congressional hearings and articles in major publications about such a thing that might be possible. In 1963, Fidel Castro accused the United States of weaponizing Hurricane Flora, which killed at least 1,000 people in Cuba. According to an article in a 1958 issue of Popular Science, American scientists worried that the Russians may be ahead of us in weather control. Publicly, weather modification conversations were fading, and the threat of weather warfare was being downplayed. One expert during this time reassured a Senate Select Committee. "I would like to emphasize, again," he said, "that I consider it highly improbable that advances in the science of weather modification will make it possible to have extensive use in weather warfare. The expert cautioned that it couldn't be completely ruled out, however, and said more research was needed. Years later, rumors began emerging of weather warfare in the Vietnam War, with a 1972 article in Science magazine saying, for the past year, rumors and speculation, along with occasional bits of circumstantial evidence, have accumulated in Washington showing that the military has tried to increase rainfall in Indochina to hinder enemy infiltration into South Vietnam. But Nixon's Secretary of Defense Melvin Laird flatly out told a senator, quote, "We have never engaged in that type of activity over North Vietnam," end quote. It didn't take long for people to recognize that this was not a denial of potential activity in Laos, Cambodia, or South Vietnam. While the senator didn't follow up with Laird, reporters asked a Pentagon spokesperson, who also denied rainmaking over North Vietnam. But when pressed about other regions, the spokesperson responded, quote, "I can't enlarge on that," end quote. In 1974, they were forced to. That year, the government admitted to attempting to make it rain to slow down movement along the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and Laird apologized for misleading Congress, saying that he had never approved the efforts. The New York Times also reported he wrote a 1974 letter to a subcommittee saying, contrary to his earlier denials, that he had, quote, just been informed such activities were conducted over North Vietnam in 1967 and again in 1968. The White Rabbit believes that it's HAARP that is controlling the weather. Subject 3. The U.S. government has investigated UFOs for years. What could be a more definitive conspiracy theory than the U.S. government spending millions of dollars on UFO research? As the Washington Post once published in 2017, for decades, Americans were told that Area 51 didn't really exist, and that the U.S. government had no official interest in aliens or UFOs. Statements to the contrary, official-sounding people cautioned, were probably the musings of crackpots in tinfoil hats. The White Rabbit might know a thing or two about those crackpots. Albert Greco wrote in his 2004 book, Conspiracy 101, Beginning to Be Crazy, that the Air Force and then the CIA had been actively investigating UFOs at taxpayer expense since the late 40s. He also noted, with more than a little sarcasm, that the 1950s, quote, were filled with more government investigations into easily explainable, totally natural, anything but alien events. According to the government, there was no validity to reports of UFOs, but they were going to continue to spend millions of American tax dollars to investigate them, end quote. And in 2017, conspiracy theorists got official confirmation that the government was, in fact, looking into UFOs, or at least it had been for a time. That year, the Pentagon confirmed the existence of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, otherwise known as ATIP. The New York Times reported it was a $22 million program in a $600 billion budget. It was started by then Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid in 2007, and the program was reportedly shut down in 2012. But the New York Times said that some officials have worked on it on the side ever since. According to the Washington Post, the purpose of the program was collecting and analyzing a wide range of anomalous aerospace threats, ranging from advanced aircraft fielded by traditional U.S. adversaries to commercial drones to possible alien encounters. Experts were quick to discount the little green men part of the UFO research, though, and former space shuttle engineer James Oberg said there are plenty of normal events and human perceptual traits that can account for these stories. Lots of people are active in the air and don't want others to know about it. They're happy to lurk unrecognized in the noise, or even to stir it up as camouflage. The White Rabbit advises you to always look up.
Sadly, our time in the tinfoil rabbit hole has come to an end. The White Rabbit hopes you enjoyed your time here and invites you to return and visit with him again in the tinfoil rabbit hole.
Where the hell is Tesla?